roll call, please.
Dr. Morris,
Here.
Mr. McDonald,
Present.
Mr. Kite,
Present.
Ms. Hurlis,
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here. Okay, can we do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of agenda. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Hurlis,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Kite,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes. Approval of the minutes for the organization meeting. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Hurlis,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Kite,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes. Okay, approval of the minutes for the special meeting. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Ms. Hurlis,
Yes.
Mr. Kite,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes. Okay, recognition and awards, Mr. Howard.
Yes, January is the Ohio School Board Association's month to recognize school board members in the state of Ohio. And at each of your seats, I have given you a little folder with a certificate from the Ohio School Board Association. Ms. Harless represents our group with the Ohio School Board Association, so they realize what a tough job it is, especially here in the last couple years. So, again, thanks for all that you do. And that is in conjunction with the Ohio School Board Associations.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Next thing is public participation, and we do have three. And the first one is Missy Redoon. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a little hands up if you get gone too far. Joe, will you take care of that for me? Give me a heads up. So,
Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak at tonight's board meeting. To those of you that do not know me, I am Missy Redoon. I've been a registered nurse for 27 years. But most importantly tonight, I come as the wife of Chad Redoon, a 22-year veteran of teacher of the Jackson City School System. Each of you sitting on the board have worked in some capacity with my husband. In December of 2020, our family had COVID, and truly we're very fortunate, or so we thought. In August of 2021, symptoms of anxiety and depression manifested in Chad. Medication adjustments were made by our primary care provider, but symptoms became much worse. Wanting help for my husband, we pressed forward in attempting to get a mental health appointment. Every provider we contacted, there was at least a 3-month wait. Some providers wouldn't even look at his information because Jackson City Schools was out of network. We were able to get him in with a mental health provider in Jackson, but unfortunately, they too are out of network, so everything is out of pocket. Having anxiety and depression is like being scared and tired at the same time. It's the fear of failure, but no urge to be productive. It's wanting friends, but hating to socialize. It's wanting to be alone, but not wanting to be lonely. It's caring about everything, then caring about nothing. It's feeling everything at once, then feeling numb. That's how my husband has felt since August. That's almost 6 months of his life. 3 weeks ago, he was admitted to an inpatient mental health facility in Mason, Ohio. We were told that his mental health issues were unfortunately related to COVID from a year ago. The day after he was admitted, another Jackson City School employee was admitted to that same facility for the same symptoms and the same reason. We have to do better. As a community, we have to stop placing labels on people that need mental health care. School employees, all of them, take on the weight of 100+ students a day. Bus drivers who see where students live, worried if they're going to be cold at night. Lunchroom attendants who see students that may ask for extra food because they don't have any food at home. teachers who see the students that fall asleep in class because they had to stay up to help mommy take care of daddy, the office staff who get the phone call, we're coming to pick up Sally because her mommy just died, the school board and superintendent who have the weight of the entire district on their shoulders. I come before you now begging for us to work harder. Work harder to find a mental health provider that will see the staff at a negotiated rate. Work harder to demand that the insurance provider take mental health seriously for Jackson City School employees. If we don't do better, our children are going to suffer because our school system will lose dedicated people who work day in and day out to make Jackson City Schools safe, compassionate, highly educated, and a motivated school system. Again, I'm begging, please help my children get their dad back. I want to offer our experience to any employee or community member that may be facing this. No one should face this alone. No one should be fearful of sharing. And most importantly, no one should be shamed for seeking help. I want to thank those in attendance and those that may be watching this meeting that have reached out to Chad. It's meant a lot. Mental health is something that we all need to talk about. We need to take the stigma away from it. So let's raise the awareness. Let's let everybody know it's okay to have a mental health illness, and it's more than okay to not be okay.
Thank you, Missy. I want to let you know that my thoughts and prayers are with Chad and your family. I agree with you 100%. So you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I've spoken to Missy on a couple of occasions. We have an insurance committee here in the district that works on issues prior to renewal every year. And when I first talked to Missy, I reached out to our broker, Pat Ball, and we talked about it. And one of the things that I suspected was the biggest issue is not as much as, you know, what our insurance covers or doesn't cover. Not saying that it can't be better, because it can always be the case, but there is a serious shortage of providers in mental health care, and especially in southeastern Ohio. And this is a systemic issue, and I think that what you're going to see now, because of the awareness, more awareness of mental health, I think that you're going to see a lot of those things be addressed here in the future. Just like in the past, whenever we've had trouble getting teachers in certain areas, the government comes up with special programs. If you teach in a high poverty area, part of your student loans are forgiven, and those kind of things. We need to come up with ways to get more people to go into that arena of mental health care. And one thing that I can say about Pat Ball, when we've had issues or problems that need to be addressed with our health insurance, Pat's always come to the rescue, and I know he's working on this. A few years ago, we were having issues with our people were saying, hey, you know, it's costing a lot of money to go to doctors and stuff. Pat came up with the plan for us to be able to allow our employees to go to local nurse practitioners here in town for, I think it was $10 or $15 at that point in time. Saved a lot of claims on our insurance and a lot of less out-of-pocket expense for our employees. He also negotiated a school nurse through Adena with us at a fraction of a rate of what it would normally be. And then he's also largely responsible for the Adena Health Clinic down at Jackson Middle School. So I've been in contact with Pat about this issue. He has reached out to our provider to make them aware of this situation, and we will be working on this as we move forward. And Pat's here tonight. Pat, I don't know, is there anything you want to say that?
I just, you know, there are lots of things that I want to say. I feel like everything that Mr. Howard said is 100% true. That doesn't, you know, I say that knowing that I don't know a guy much better than Chad Radoon. Just a great guy, and I take it personally when any of my clients can't find the services that they need. And I would never say anything that I didn't believe to be true. We have, the parallel that I would make is when COVID first came out, we had a ramp up of facilities. You guys might not know this, some of you probably do, but Holzer and Adena were setting aside wards to increase the capacity for inpatient care due to COVID, okay? The parallel is we've had this influx of mental health disorders, but there was no capacity built out to accommodate those people. I am immediately after this meeting going to ask Missy, what facilities were out of network, and we'll contact them directly and find out what the problem is. I feel like I've let the district down and Missy down, and but I really don't know that that there's anything that the health plan or the insurance committee or even Medical Mutual, quite frankly, could have done, because there's such a shortage of mental health professionals in southeastern Ohio and nationally. But by golly, I think that, as Mr. Howard pointed out, this has brought to light something that this country has need to discuss for a long time, and that's whatever resources we can bring to bear to help facilitate a broader network. We're absolutely willing to do that. And just as Mr. Moore said, thoughts and prayers are with your family, Missy, and thank you for coming to the meeting. Does anybody have any questions of me?
Pat, something you're going to find when you research this, because I've talked to some physicians here locally since Missy emailed us, and there's one hospital here local, I'm not going to call them out, but they have mental health, and they only accept Ohio Medicaid. They don't take any private insurance because Ohio Medicaid pays 100% on mental health. And that's a trend in the facilities here, and so you've probably, Missy's shaking her head, like they don't, a lot of the few mental health providers that we actually have in this region only take Medicaid. They don't take any private insurance, so it's cash out of your pocket or state health care. So that's something, I don't know how do you fix that.
Well, and that's the issue. We fix it by dialogue, Brian. The reality is that we need to bring that, it's about reimbursement, as you said, quite frankly, and that's something that when small communities like this have public school board meetings and talk about the real issues that the employees are having at their schools, that gets somebody's attention sometime. The reality is we have 30 psychologists and 30 psychiatrists within a 30-mile radius of Jackson that are in network. And that sounds like a lot, but there's probably 300 primary care physicians, for example, to put things into perspective. So it is frustrating, and we will work with the provider community to demonstrate the need, and hopefully there will be a meeting of the provider community and the patient community that we can all be happy about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Missy, again. The next one is signed up is Beth Jenkins. She wants to talk about youth sports. So again, Beth, you have 3 minutes. I'll kind of give you a shout out there if you're getting close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many before and after me will speak of the contagious COVID-19 virus. It's why we're all here. We all agree that it's real, that the vaccine can help, that we've taken many helpful steps to curb the virus. I won't deliver more scientific news from a news media outlet. I'm here to talk about another infection, an infection that appears to be lacking within these walls. You might be asking yourself, a lacking infection? I'm talking about courage. Courage is not lobbying for support of a singular, unilateral decision behind closed doors or a private conversation. Courage is not asking neighboring counties and school districts to follow or lead. Courage is not comparing to others. Courage is not reprimanding and scaring employees for shares and likes. Courage is infectious. Courage leadership is followed without asking for followers. Courage is speaking up and against and out in difficult times. It takes heart, it takes understanding, it takes admitting when you've made mistakes. It takes understanding what is necessary, here and the now, and acting. To Mr. Howard, the decision was yours to close the doors to our youth. To the school board, you've got the decision-making power to open the doors back up, make masks optional, and proceed with educating youth. Look at one another with courage and answer the call you've either been elected or hired to do. How will you be remembered, courageously or cowardly?
Okay, thank you, Beth. Mr. Howard, do you want to address?
Yeah, when we came back from our holiday break on January 3rd, our attendance was not good, and our COVID numbers were not good either. As the week progressed, it got progressively worse. And when I made the decision on that Wednesday or Thursday to stop our youth basketball program, that was a pause. It was not definite forever. My hope is that within a week or two we can bring it back. But at that time, my main goal, and I hope everybody's main goal, is always to be able to keep the schools open. And we were dangerously close to having to shut down. And we had 24 teachers out. We had so many bus drivers out that we had secretary driving, both mechanics driving, transporting kids to and from school. No mechanic in the garage when you got 25 buses out on the road. Those are not good situations. So we were within a thread or a hair of anything else happening, of having to shut the school down. And while I understand the importance and the significance of the youth basketball programs, I don't ever want to take away an opportunity from a kid. My goal first and foremost is to be able to make sure that we can keep our schools open. We had 11 positive cases in one of the elementary buildings on the day that I made that decision. And again, I'm looking at those numbers every single day on a daily basis, and as those numbers change, then I think that I've shown that we will make changes. I mean, we started off requiring masks here at Jackson High School. When the numbers dictated it, we went away from the mask and made them optional. And then this new variant came about, and we had to go back to wearing the mask. So I think I've shown that I will make the changes based on what the data show at that particular time. But right now, I just think that the safest thing for us to do, I mean, think how many people would be impacted if we have to shut the school down. I mean, you've got all these working people. What would they do with their children, trying to help them with their homework remotely? I just think that, well, first of all, given the fact that we shut down our high school programs for a week, boys basketball, varsity basketball, and cheer couldn't do anything for a week. Every time you pick up the paper, the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, those pro sports are getting shut down all the time. And I guess I was kind of surprised that stopping third, fourth, fifth grade basketball momentarily for a week or two was going to be that big of a deal. But I understand that it's important, but I do intend to bring it back as soon as we can.
Okay. Next one is Mr. Carlisle. He's talking about scholarship fund. Good evening.
I know a few of you. Some of you know me, and that's enough. As announced, I'm here in behalf of the Class of '62 Scholarship Fund. There was a time back in midsummer that there's an organization, for those that don't know, it's called Foundation for Appalachian Ohio. And it's basically a fund that you can invest in, and you get a good rate of return if things are good in the economy. And it came because of circumstances which I don't need to address. that monies had to be pulled out of there, including the funds that we had in there, which amounted to just over $37,000. It's been about 7 months since that occurred, and I'm proud to tell you, because of our class of 1962, we are now sitting at $50,000. I couldn't be any more proud, other than my family, of the people that's in my class. Not that it matters, but we were raised by a World War II generation and people that went through Depression. And I can't imagine anybody any stronger in patriotism. That was a side note. What I'm here for is I'm a committee member and live locally, and a lot of the people that's on the committee live away. And we're at the point in time that we would like to combine all our funds and return them to this Foundation for Appalachian Ohio and set up our own account. In order to do that, monies would have to be released from Vinton County Bank and paid either through Carolyn McCormick or directly to the bank so we can set up our fund. And really, that's the crux of why I'm here, and I really need permission or an approval from you folks that you can release those funds for us.
Can I go ahead?
Is that it? Yeah.
Well-
I didn't know if there's any questions before I walked away.
Hold on just a second. Maybe
Okay.
somebody will have a question
Okay.
for you, Glenn.
Okay.
But I would say that, first of all, tonight, we're hopefully going to hire a new treasurer tonight. And so I think it'd be premature for us to make that decision without input from our new treasurer. But having said that, once money is given to the district, it belongs to the district. And we have tons and tons of accounts, of separate accounts. And if the district allows everyone to dictate where that money is going to be invested, it would be a record-keeping nightmare. There's no way that we could keep track of that. Now, if groups want to not give the money to the district directly and keep it and invest it wherever they want, and then provide us the scholarship money, that can be arranged, and we have some groups that actually do that. But once the money comes to the district, we can't get in a habit of, people giving it to us to invest for a little while. Well, it's not doing as well as what we want, so we want to take it out and invest it somewhere else, or vice versa. Maybe it's not doing real well where you have it invested, so we'll bring it back to the school district. We can't do that and be able to keep track of where everything's at. But I don't think that I would want. I know I wouldn't want to. And of course, Brenda's an interim here, and the rest of the board. My advice would be that we need to see what our new treasurer's position is on this, and go from there. And I just don't think that we have enough information right now to make that decision, if that makes sense to you.
It does, but by the same token, keep in mind that we couldn't set up our own account until now.
Right.
Once we get all the funds, and also, I think this goes without saying, this is strictly for high school students. And we're one of few setups and scholarship funds that go to the trades. We don't give money to college students. We made that mind up. There's plenty of kids down there at a beautiful school that need support. And I'll tell you, I went to one of the banquets, and that was almost as good as going to the JVAC banquets.
And your group is probably one of the few that is willing to take that risk for some of the reasons that you gave. I really don't want to have to call up some of our donors and say, that we've invested your money in the market and the market crashed, and what if it went the other way? You had $50,000 that you gave us, and now I got to call you up and say you only got 37 because of the way that we invested it. So typically, we're going to, as a school district, invest in the safest places and not necessarily try to get that high return because of the risk that's involved. But I
Okay.
understand that your group is okay with that. I
Yeah,
just don't-
absolutely.
I just don't know that everybody else would feel that same way.
Absolutely, and to come back, not at you, but with you in a discussion, you're getting terrible money return now from these banks. You were actually better off, like we originally started with Edward Jones, and we were getting a couple points with that before we decided to, or what happened to us.
Right.
Which we understand with that. We don't have a problem with that. So they're going to come back and ask me a time frame because I'm here representing almost 200 people. Actually, it's a lot less than that since we're getting to be old farts. But you're at this point, you can't tell me what kind of time frame where you'd have
I
a
would-
response.
I would think probably within a couple of months, Gwen. Now, our,
Okay.
our new treasurer is going to come on board on February 1st. I mean, I'll probably be talking with him between now and then, and maybe we'll have an answer before then, maybe
Okay,
not. But
okay.
he won't be with the district until February 1st.
Okay, well, we've waited 7 months, so
Sure.
what's another 60 days, right? So you'll be in touch with me as a representative of the class?
Sure, yep.
Basically?
I know
Okay.
where to find you. I see
Yeah.
you walking past my office every day.
Either that or on our subject matter that we're going to
Sure.
see each other on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gwen.
Thank
Okay.
you. That concludes the public participation. I want to thank everybody. Very interesting and very, very well done by everybody. If you want to leave, now might be the time to leave. If not, we're going to go on with our business. So, that being said, consent agenda, Phil.
Okay, it is recommended that the board approve the consent agenda as follows. Item A, I would ask that the board approve several resignations and retirements. There's a couple there that jump out at me of longtime teachers there. You got Greg Potter, probably got, I don't know, 38, 40 years or more in the district, and Kevin Smith, ton of years, Todd Trace there, and then there's several other coaching positions and so forth. Item B is a recommendation to rescind a resignation, retirement of Melody Walker with a new amended resignation date. Item C is a recommendation to employ certified subs as follows. There are 3 of those individuals. Item D is a recommendation to employ substitute teachers, and these are people who are non-bachelor's degree. We talked about that at one of our meetings, and I do want to say that probably was one of the best things this board's ever done because, quite frankly, I guarantee you we would have been closed down in the last week or two if you had not given me the authority to be able to do this, because these college students here have really saved us in the last 2 weeks, and a little bit even actually before we went on break. So approval of those individuals. Item E, recommendation to employ classified subs for the remainder of this school year as listed. Item F is a recommendation to employ individuals for supplemental contracts for the remainder of this school year, basically our spring sports, it looks like. Item G is a recommendation for employment of supplemental contracts for the fall of next school year. There's a lot of those individuals listed there. Item H is a recommendation to approve an out-of-state trip for baseball and softball teams to Myrtle Beach during spring break. Item I is a recommendation to approve Fred Arthur and Kendall Neal as volunteers. Item J, recommendation to approve an uncompensated non-medical leave for Stacy Bentley. Item K is a recommendation to approve an amendment to the Jackson City High School and the middle school handbook, and that had to do with testing, semester tests. Item L is a recommendation to approve a list of scholarship committees, and with the board's permission, unless Dr. Morris wants me to read all these, I'll just say approve the scholarship committees. You all right with that, Doctor?
Yeah.
Item M is a recommendation to approve the Jackson Cheer Boosters and the Takedown Club as a support group. Item N is a recommendation to approve membership into the Ohio School Board Association. Item O is a recommendation to approve a lease with the Rio Grande Community College for use of our chemistry lab here at the high school for their college courses. We've done that for the last few years. Item P is a recommendation to create a new fund known as the Federal Agricultural Lunchroom Equipment Grant. And that concludes the consent agenda, Mr. Moore.
Okay, is there any items that need to be separated for consideration? If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second?
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Kite?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Okay, that takes us to new business, and I get to make a recommendation. So I want to recommend employment for Jared Budding as the treasurer under a 2.5-year contract. I need a motion and a second.
Can I ask a question? Why is it 2.5 years and not 3?
I'm sorry, he is starting in February, and we want it to be on a year time, so we come up with a 2.5 and got that worked.
That's fine.
Yeah,
I'll make-
to get it to the normal start time of August 1.
That's fine. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Kite?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes. Financial report, Brenda?
You have your October report, it's as presented. And I also included a tax budget. The county auditor has waived that. We did not have to really do a tax budget, but I felt with the hiring of the new treasurer that it might be best that we go ahead and do that if the board so agrees. So a copy of that should have been attached to your agenda.
Okay, I need a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Kite?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes. Okay, that brings us down to information and discussion items. Mr. Howard?
A couple of things here. Our district dental insurance, which is, a drop in the bucket really compared to our health insurance, but still just over $100,000 a year that the district pays for dental insurance. And when we asked for a rate quote this year when we were negotiating insurance, it came back a little higher than what I thought it should, so I asked Pat Ball to send it out to the market. He did. We got another quote from another company. Right now, we're with a company called Guardian, and we got a quote back from a company called Superior. I generally try to lean on Dr. Morris a lot when it comes to our dental insurance because he knows way more about it than I do as far as which companies pay the best and which ones give the best coverage and so forth. But bottom line was I had to make a decision about the insurance, the dental insurance, and we've been with Guardian for several years. Guardian, in their plan, allows rollover of unused funds. There's $1,500 that each person gets per year. If you don't use all that, you can roll it over to the next year. It would have been a little bit cheaper for us to switch companies, but in speaking with different board members, the board wanted to not take away coverage from our employees, to allow our employees to still be able to have the maximum amount of coverage. The dental insurance is a lot different than the health insurance. We don't have to have a committee comprised of employees throughout the district because the board pays 100% for the dental insurance. So we can pretty much do what we want. But bottom line was we could have saved a few $1,000s and switched to a new company, but anytime you switch providers, you run into issues with is somebody going to be in the network? Are they not going to be in the network? It was just such a small amount of savings that the board felt like that we needed to go ahead and stay with the company that we were with so that we wouldn't create any kind of disruption with our employees. So we chose to stay with Guardian Dental Insurance. Item B, I won't take very long, but just real quickly, for the public mainly, you guys, I sent the board an email today with an update of our COVID numbers. This is actually the exact email that I sent to the board, and you can see that last week, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, 4 days last week, that was the percentage of students that we had out. It's also on that board over there, if you can see it better. Yesterday and today, that's the percentage of students that we have out. Over 50% of our students are out. And then we've broken it down by building. So, as I said earlier, the day that I made that decision to pause the youth basketball, we were at, over 20% of our students out in one of our elementary buildings and 16, 17% the next day. So we started off this week actually better than what we ended last week. We ended at 15.73 for the week. Started off at 14.25, but last week we started off at 12. So my concern is what's going to happen here in the next 3 or 4 days, because we're higher than what we started last week. And then on December 16th, the day before our holiday break, we had 16 positive cases in the district and 41 exposures. When we came back on January 3rd, we had 44 positive cases in the district and 76 exposures. 3 days later, on that Thursday, we had 56 positive cases and 108 exposures. We took that Friday off due to the weather or COVID, whatever you want to call it, and with the 3-day weekend, we came back yesterday with 33 positive cases. Today, it went up to 43 positive cases. So I'm not sure where we're headed, but we're watching this every single day and monitoring it every day. Now, I do want to point out that when you see all these positive cases, that's not 56 different ones, 33 different ones, 43 different ones. Once you're positive, you're on there for 5 days. But what that tells me is that more are becoming positive than what's coming off right now, and that's concerning. So if you go back and take a look at our percentages that are out, you see these big numbers here. Northview's 15 and 17, almost 18% out. If you go back and look at, let's go back into November. In November, you're seeing 3s and 4s and 7s percentage of students that are out. And even in December, there's a lot of 5s, 6s, 7s, 4s, 8s. Rarely do you see double figures. Where now, it's rare to see one that's not a double figure. We got a 9.92, and everything else is double digits. So that's kind of where we're at right now with COVID, and it's really day to day. I mean, we're going to do everything we can to try to keep our kids in school. It's as much not about student attendance. It's not all about student attendance, because if we have 95% of our kids in school, if we don't have enough teachers, enough bus drivers, enough cooks, enough secretaries, we can't staff the place. So while this is important and can dictate at some point that we would shut down, it's not everything. I mean, we've had as many as 24 teachers. We had 22 out today, which is not as many as we had last week at times, but a lot of those college students are going back. They're going back to where they're going to school at, and we don't have access to those people to help us sub. So subs are going to be a pretty hot commodity in the coming days here. So. And then the last thing that I have, last week, the board elected Mr. Moore as our board president. He's approached me with an idea of, pass this down.
Yeah.
I think this is a pretty neat idea. He came to me and said, hey, what do you think about having a student representative for the Board of Education? And I know there are some districts that do that in places. There's a high school student, usually a senior. They'll have a seat up here. They won't be able to vote, but they will be able to be in the meetings and participate in a lot of things. So what I did was, took it upon myself to come up with some criteria here to make this happen. Now, ideally, it would start, at the beginning of the year, but we're in February. So what I would like to propose here is that any senior who would wish to be selected as the student representative will have an application that they fill out here at the high school. The selection will be made by a committee of the high school principal, who knows the kids better than anybody, myself, and 1 or 2 board members. Since we're in February, I think that probably the best way to do it now would be to go ahead and pick somebody for, well, we will be in February when we come back for the next month. We'll go ahead and select the student representative for February, March, April, and May, and then get on the cycle of where each year in May, a junior who's going to be a senior when the next school year starts would be selected to be the student representative to the Board of Education. And I've given a list of what those rights and what their responsibilities would be. I would meet with those kids to go over those things. I mean, I just think that would be something that would be really good for a student to, have to put on a resume. There may be some student who is interested in student government or politics or something. And, when Brian approached me about it and said, we need to hear more from the kids. We need to be able to have a voice or listen to a voice from our students. This would provide that link between the board and our students. So if the board is okay with this, and I would just ask that someone make a motion to accept and approve the criteria for the student representative for our school board.
Need a motion and a second.
So moved. We haven't read it.
Second it.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I hate to vote on it if I haven't read it.
Yeah.
I read it while he was talking.
You read it while he was talking?
Give doctor
I
some
know
time.
somebody may have questions about those.
We'll give doctor some time there.
Well, I'm sure it's fine. I just hate to vote on something I haven't read.
No, that's fine.
Is there a reason you took juniors off of it? You have that scratched out?
Yeah, I talked to some other places, and I don't know. I mean, it can,
I can answer
go ahead.
that. He brought that to my attention, and it's late in the year, and he wanted to know if we just go to a junior and have them be on it like a year and 4 or 5 months. I thought it would be best if we would grab a senior now, because I think it might look good on a college application. So next year we'll have a junior to be on it for their whole senior year. So that was kind of my idea.
So if there's a junior now, they would have the opportunity to be it next year.
Yeah.
Well, if you had them as a junior during their junior year, would you have them for 2 years, or would you?
That would be
Right,
up
so
to,
a senior makes sense. That's fine.
that would be up to you guys.
Yeah.
I've written it to where the term is a 1-year term.
Okay, that's fine.
So I need a motion and a second.
Did you make the motion?
Yeah, so moved.
I second it.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Kite?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes. Okay, that takes us down to closing items, so anything from board members that want to say anything? If not, Phil, you have anything else you want to say?
Brian, were you wanting us to do our shout outs this week?
Oh.
This month? Or you gonna start next?
I do, thank you. Thank you. Another thing we wanted to do as a board, we have a principal back there, so I want to give a shout out to the kids. So we're going to ask the principals to be able to give us a list of names of some kids that done something in the month. It could be in improving their grades. It could be anything you want it to be. And we're going to shout out. I challenge the board. We can all have one. We can shout out about the kid and what they've done. That keeps us kind of involved with the kids. It seems like we have a lot of recognition of the kids, but it's always, someone got a perfect score on the state test. That's not a whole lot of people. There's a whole lot of other people that deserves a shout out too. I know we need to reach them, and I challenge the board to have one or two each month, and then we can give a shout out. Won't take that long. We'll do it at the end of the meeting, and so we'll be leaning on you guys to give us some information about what's going on. So thanks for reminding me about that.
Well, I've got one for this month.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I talked to Miss Ball about what we were going to be doing. She thought this was the greatest thing in the world. If anybody knows Melissa, she's all about making the kids. She thought it was fantastic. So I asked her if she could give me the name of someone who, kids that may not get recognized all the time, but somebody just stands out to her as just doing something a little bit special. And she said, right off the top of her head, without stopping to think, young man's name is Ivan Conley. He's a 5th grader at Northview. Apparently, great attitude, shows kindness to all the new kids, always the first kid. If there's a new student at school that wants to take them by the hand and show them around, they're currently going to be using him as a mentor for some of the younger kids that may be struggling a little bit. And what Mrs. Ball said to me is that he basically exemplifies everything that an Ironman is. And so I wanted to give a shout out, or the first one, to Ivan Conley at Northview.
That's awesome. For the first one, that is awesome. That's what I kind of visualized, and thank you. I got one. I don't know exact details, so maybe someone else does, but I think that we have like maybe 26 football players with the 3.6 or something. I heard about that. It's grade point average. That's great, and we're really proud of them being smart on the field and smart in the classroom. So there's my shout out. So anybody else? Phil, you got anything? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.